Hey guys, welcome back to our coffee shop website tutorial here on Turbo 360. In the previous video, we set up the order form connection so that when the user places an order, it actually creates a new order record in our CMS, and the owner of the shop can then check that to see if any orders have come in. So in this video, we're going to do some optimizations. We're gonna, and most importantly, we're gonna connect the image and CSS and JavaScript assets to the built-in content delivery network, or the CDN, that comes with every Turbo project. So what's a CDN? A content delivery network is basically the best way to manage your static assets on a website. What it does is it places your static assets in a series of locations. It's called what's called the edge network, which is a series of servers that are strategically placed closest to wherever the visitor is geographically located. So what that means is, let's say, for example, somebody is visiting your website from California, then the static assets should be delivered from a server closest to that person in the West Coast, as opposed to someone maybe visiting your website from Europe. So if a person is visiting your website from Europe, then the static assets are delivered from a server probably in Europe. And that's the edge network, and that's done through a CDN, or a content delivery network. Normally, you'd have to set up the CDN yourself and get all that connected properly to your static assets, but one of the key features of Turbo is that it does that for you out of the box. But just like the CMS, you have to integrate it. It's not something that just works automatically. So to show you kind of how it works, if we go to our staging server for the project, which is right here, let's say we click on one of these images. So this one right here. Let's go with this one right here, the first one we uploaded. So we want to click on this. So open in new tab. Now you'll notice that the URL here is not our website, it's the CDN. So in other words, the images are redirected to the CDN anyway. However, the image URL here is coming directly from our website. So ultimately the image redirects to the CDN anyway. However, it goes through our main server and then redirects to the CDN, which is really not the best way of looking at it. What that means is, for every one of these static asset requests, this is another example. CSS does the same thing. You see how it redirects to the CDN and away from our base URL. So the main point here is that it still goes through our server first and then redirects to the CDN, when in reality it should just go right to the CDN. It should just bypass our server entirely and hit the CDN directly. And that's the best way to handle these static assets. That's sort of the best optimization. That's sort of a professional way of handling it. So this CDN URL right here should actually be fully showing up over here. So in order to do that, it's actually pretty simple. It's provided to us in the context, the request context. So if we open up the main route right here, you see how we're grabbing the context on pretty much every request. Well, part of that context, in addition to the global configuration pages and things like that, is also the CDN, and it's just simply provided to us as a key called CDN. So what we can do is we can go into our head tag and simply add a slash and then a CDN like this, like that, except spell it right. So what this means is that the CDN will be provided linked to these static asset imports rather than just going directly to our server. So we can do that for all of these. Okay, and let's make sure I didn't miss any. Okay, and you might be wondering why I'm using 3 curly braces here instead of 2. Whenever you have whenever you're using the mustache templating for a full URL, I find that it's better to use 3 for what's called URL escaping. It's not really relevant to this tutorial, but it'll work with 2 if you just do it like this, but it's better if you just do 3. So that's really the main point there. So now if I run the server locally, and then head over to localhost, it's going to look the same, and if I go to the source code, it's still going to look the same. Nothing's going to be different because we're loading this from localhost, so there is no CDN on localhost. However, when I deploy to the server, the CDN will be provided to us by the context, and then this will then show up directly as the CDN URL. So I'm going to deploy this to the server and pause the video while it's going up. Okay, the deployment is up. Let's check it out on staging. Everything should look the same. Looks good. Now let's head over to the source code, and you'll see over here the full CDN paths are now showing up on the CSS imports. This is a much better way to handle your static assets because it bypasses your server entirely and it goes right to the static asset. And this content here is being served from the edge network, the edge location. So it's coming from a server that's most closest to me physically, geographically. And if I was based in Europe, then this would be coming from a different server in Europe somewhere instead. So this process should be applied to all the static assets. So really what we need to do is if we head down to the JavaScripts, you'll see that we're still rendering this directly from the server. And this is really no good. What we need to do is render this from the CDN as well. So let's head back to our scripts partial and do the same process. I'm going to just do a copy and replace here. So let's replace that with CDN, and you can just do this in one click like that. Save a little bit of time. That takes care of our JavaScript imports. Let's head over to our nav partial and look for any images. So the images want to be handled the same way. Inside the nav partial, I don't see any images, so we're okay there. Let's try the footer. Okay, no images here. And if we head over to the home mustache, okay, let's see here. Now we do have images coming from the templating engine, the template files, the configuration files, excuse me. So let's consider how we want to handle this. So if we look at the home JSON, this really should come from the CDN. Now this here will not work because this is a JSON file. So the templating engine doesn't pick this part up. So let's see, there's a couple ways we can handle this. Okay, so if we go to the home mustache, the best way to handle this is to place the CDN right here. So 1, 2, 3, CDN 1, 2, 3. And then that will place the CDN before the path right there. That's probably the best way to handle this. So let's do that. So we have a background image there, another one here. Another one here. One right here. Let's do a search for background image. So we got another one right here. Right there. And here's one where the image is still from the actual template itself, the theme itself. Okay, and that covered all of them. Let's run it on localhost real quick, just to make sure it still works fine on localhost. Okay, no problems there. And then let's throw this back up on the staging server to make sure the CDN is also being used on the images as well. So I'm going to throw this up on staging. Okay, the deployment is up. Let's head over to staging and make sure everything looks the same. So there should be no visual differences here, but the images are now loading from the CDN, which is much faster. I'm not really sure why these icons aren't loading. Oh, it's because I replaced them in here as well. So I made a mistake on the actual menu section. So let's fix that real quick because that doesn't look good. So if I go to the menu section, we do not need the CDN for each menu item because those are loading from when we uploaded these images to the CMS. Those are loading from the CMS rather than the actual web source files. It's a bit of a difference. So we really should take care of that. But everything else so far is loading properly. Everything looks good at least. Let's go ahead and check the source code. We can just do that this way. So here we're getting all the CDN references, same as over here. If we check one of the images, we have that right here. This is the main hero image, and it's directly loading from the CDN. Now I'm going to do one more deploy just to fix these menu icons because we don't want to leave that broken. So inside the coffee and tea, we got to get rid of that, and pastries sections. This should now be rendering from the CMS. So I'm going to deploy this, but this time I'm not going to pause the video because while it's deploying I'm going to explain the mistake that I made. So these images for the menu items are actually stored in the CMS rather than the source code of the video. I'm sorry, the project, excuse me. Whereas the other images are stored in the actual source code, meaning they're in the public/images folder. And so these images are coming from the source code, whereas the menu items are coming from the CMS. Those are two different locations. So the CMS did not need to be connected to the CDN because they're already in the CDN. The CMS does that for you. So we were actually doing it twice, which is too much. That's why the links were broken. So we had to go ahead and correct that so that the menu icons properly show up. So once the staging is up, we will confirm that, and that should be it for this video. Okay, the deployment is up. Let's head back to staging and make sure we didn't leave something in a broken state. There we are, back in business over here, and everything is now looking good and loading from the CDN for the static assets. This is considered a very important optimization too. So this makes your website faster. Everything is loading more quickly, and because your server is doing less work. That's the important thing to understand here. Your server is doing less work because it doesn't have to render these assets. It goes right to the CDN directly and bypassing your server entirely, the Turbo server. And it makes it much more responsive, much more fast in terms of response times. So so that's it. That's an important optimization. Make sure you do that in your websites, especially on your Turbo sites, because you get the CDN connection for free by default. Otherwise, you'd have to connect it to a custom CDN like a Cloudflare or CloudFront or something like that. So in the next video and the final video, we're just going to do some touch-up work. We're going to finish out this section right here, customize this area for our coffee shop. Going to change the image down here, do some brush-up work, and that should complete the coffee shop tutorial. So hopefully got everything working. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.